As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
Griffin Gaming Partners in the news. Griffin Gaming Partners. This story, I was floored when I saw this. The headline here: Griffin Gaming Partners raises biggest game VC fund with $750 million, which is a huge fund. So they just revealed that they raised the biggest fund in gaming, $750 million. It's going to be game focused. It's the same partners heading the fund. It focuses on gaming and markets that are adjacent to gaming, such as esports, gaming infrastructure, tools, social gaming platforms, streaming, and the cloud. They now have more than $1 billion under assets to invest in games. This is from VentureBeat, so it was an interview. Asked what the $750 million funding round means, Tuosto said in an interview with GamesBeat, "It means it's a great time to be a founder. When I think about the history of games, it has had a perception from investor mindsets of being a very hits-driven business where it's hard to make money. Most of the folks who invest in this category do it only for a percentage of their time. They're not all in on games. We cover this space closely. It takes expertise, relationships, and dedicated focus." Thoughts on this, guys, on this very, very large now venture fund, brand new pool of capital to go and invest in even more games primarily, and some things adjacent to games.
I have one comment. So, and I definitely want to pass it to, I mean, this has Jeff written all over it, I think, and I don't want to downplay your voice, Lindsay, at all. I know you're shaking your head, yeah, too. I have one comment on this story, which, as someone that's worked for a startup where we had Griffin as one of our, that contributed pretty much our entire seed round, I can say that these guys were very generous, not only with their money, but with their time, in having very regular meetings, learning exactly what we were up to every step of the way, how they could help their other portfolio projects that they could plug us into. So if they have $750 million right now, and seeing what they did with what we had and the time and attention we were given, I just can't imagine how you scale that type of, not to say that they can't do it, but it just kind of blows my mind that what they were able to do before, how successful they clearly were. What I saw, at least on the receiving end, and how appreciative I was for that guidance, mentorship, networking, etc. For them to do that at such a larger level, clearly they're not doubling down on this, right? They're going all in. This is an all-in play, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah, Jimmy, that's a super insightful comment, and really interesting to kind of hear, because you always hear that from VCs. Hey, we're really hands-on, we're super helpful. Like the fact that they're actually adding value, and you have that insight from your prior work. I mean, that's pretty cool. I didn't have a crazy take. I mean, I think actually the quote from, I think it's Nick Tuosto, was pretty spot on. I mean, it's an amazing time to be a founder in gaming right now. There's so much capital pouring into all of these themes, and I do think there is an advantage to being industry focused, right? Like there's a lot of tourist money, kind of the Tiger Globals and the Temaseks and these amazing funds, but they're not gaming focused. Now, granted, they could hire the best and the brightest, so I'm sure they know what they're doing also. But I think there's something to be living, eating, and breathing every day this space that definitely gives you a competitive advantage. The one, I guess, takeaway or hot take I'll say is that I bet it won't be this is the biggest fund in gaming today. I guarantee you in 3 months there will be a bigger one. It just feels like, it's kind of like when the Zynga acquisition happened. It was the biggest acquisition in gaming history, and then 2 weeks later it was eclipsed. there will be bigger funds, and that's not to poo-poo this. It's just there's so much interest in this space right now, and it's awesome for all of us.
But do you think the ecosystem today can support bigger funds? Because the implication of that is you have to believe that there's going to be continued massive consolidation at very frothy kind of valuations, right? That has to be part of the thesis. Because to deploy $1 billion into game companies, right, and game development mostly, you have to believe that the big guys are going to continue to acquire smaller guys at huge valuations.
Well, there's two parts to that question. Do I believe there will be bigger funds? And then do I believe those funds will do well because there's enough, what you said. I definitely believe there will be money chasing the space. I think what you bring up is a valid sort of concern in the sense that, hey, when there's so much money chasing this industry, like, do we get saturated where not all of these funds can outperform, not all of these funds can, have great returns for their LPs if valuations start getting stretched and there's just not enough either good teams, good founders and whatnot. Obviously, Paul, I think I would love to hear your take on that, but I definitely believe that it certainly will be true that there will be funds raised. The question then becomes, will those funds be successful?
I mean, the struggle becomes, I think, a people problem also, right? Like, well, we did a story on the Meta Business podcast about Immutable raising 200 million. And I think in this article, which, by the way, you guys should all subscribe to, and also Lindsay's Meta Woman podcast, but we did this story, and I think in that article, it said something like they're struggling to hire and find good people. Like, it's just not that easy to go and spend $200 million that you've raised and hire, 1,000 new people and all be really good employees with all the money in the system, all competing for game development talent. I would say it's not only a great time to be the founder of a game development studio, but it's a great time to be a game developer, period, right? Like, just working on a game, I feel like the level of competition for talent is going to go sky high. And the individuals, I think, will benefit there. Lindsay, any thoughts on this before we move on here?
No, I think Jeff pretty much covered it. I mean, I'm always excited to see good investment firms go all in. I think if there's one thing that I've been learning about the venture space, it's that, the bigger firms that actually show their support when they go all in on things, it tends to go pretty well and lead to some pretty cool and innovative projects. So I'm excited to see where this one goes.
Yeah, what I don't like is, and again, I'm not going to fault them for this, because it would be a bad quote, but there's nowhere in this interview that's like, hey, we're going to invest in the most fun games, right? It's all about business models, because that would be a bad quote. So I'm not faulting them for that. That would probably sound stupid in a VentureBeat interview, but, and it's also like not something you can really quantify. But again, I worry a little bit that, does half this fund go to play to earn games, and what are the implications of that from an industry standpoint? That's where I worry a little bit more, but I love seeing this. Griffin's a great group. And it'll be interesting to see how they deploy the 750 million. I think we will see them getting into a lot of competitive deals as a consequence of having so much capital. You know who this puts pressure on?
Yeah.
It puts pressure on the big sovereign wealth funds or family offices that do direct deals, which I think is an interesting dynamic, because everyone sitting on a few $1 billion now, there's so much more urgency to do direct deals when you have now funds that are almost at the same scale. So I think as a consequence, you'll see more direct deals coming from groups that may historically have worked through funds instead.